Hello dear students, myself Dr. Sachin Gurule, Assistant Professor from Department of Zoology, KTHM College, Nasik. In the previous video of subject entomology first, we have started with the types of mouth parts and their modification, and we have completed the first classical kind of mouth part, that is biting and chewing, also called as a chewing kind of the mouth parts. Now in this video, we are going to learn the types of chewing mouth parts and the another mouth part, that is rasping and sucking mouth part, which is actually the intermediate between the two classical mouth parts, piercing and sucking and chewing type of mouth part. So let's see first of all the chewing type of mouth parts and their subtypes. Actually, in the chewing type of mouth parts, the different appendages are the labrum, pair of mandible, pair of maxillae, labium, and at the middle region, the hypopharynx. Now, all these appendages, they are surrounding the mouth opening, and it is developed for the insect in which they are feeding on the solid food material. But among all these appendages, in some insect, these appendages undergo some modification and gives rise to the another different subtypes of the chewing mouth parts according to the need and feeding habit of these insects. So there are three subtypes of the chewing mouth part, that is grasping mandibular mouth part, which is the found into the lepidopteran larvae, particularly the moths. Then second one is a grasping and sucking mouth parts. They are found in some neuropteran insect and some coleopteran insect. And third modification is known as mandibulo-septorial mouth parts, which is found into the insect like ant lion, which is again belongs to the neuroptera. So let's see one by one. First of all, the grasping and chewing, grasping mandibular kind of the mouth part. Now in the grasping mandibular mouth parts, whatever appendages are there, these among these appendages, few appendages they are get united with one another, forming a composite structure. And this is for a special need. And the peculiarity of this kind of mouth part is the mandibles. These mandibles are provided with a mandibular gland, which is a large one, and they are provided with a small abductor muscles and large adductor muscles. So obviously adductor and abductor muscles are responsible for interlocking the mandibles for cutting the food material into the smaller pieces. So these muscles are there. Then after, the another three appendages, that is maxillae, labium and hypopharynx. So this is maxillae, labium and hypopharynx. These three appendages are get united to form a large composite structure, and this large composite structure is projected behind the mouth parts or the mouth like a thick upper lip called as maxillolabial hypopharyngeal complex. Means whatever composite structure or the complex which is get formed due to the fusion of maxillae, labium and hypopharynx is collectively referred as maxillolabial hypopharyngeal complex. Now it bears a spinneret at its tip or at the distal end, and basally this whole organ is supported by the hypostomal lobe of the post gene. So this is the basal region which is supported by the hypostomal lobe of the post gene. Then the wall of the underlip complex is a membranous. So here in this diagram you can see that the wall is somewhat membranous in nature, and the two lateral lobes here, they are representing the maxilla. The median lobe, again it is formed by the fusion of labium and hypopharynx. So the basal portion is contributed by the labium and the distalmost portion is contributed by the hypopharynx. Now this hypopharynx at a distal end or the distally, it bears a spinneret. So this is a spinneret and this is a magnified view of the original spinneret. This spinneret is a hollow spine having a orifice of silk gland at its extremity. Okay, and this silk gland is actually the modification of or the modified salivary gland and is found into the lepidopteran insect. For example, moths, those synthesizes a silken cocoon around themselves to undergo the process of pupation. So only these kind of the insect, they has such a kind of the arrangement, and they are provided with a well developed silk gland, and that silk gland, this gives out a secretion, liquid secretion. When it comes in a contact with the air, it becomes a hardened and it is converted into the thread, and this thread is useful for spinning the silken cocoon. So for that purpose, this spinneret is very important, which is a hollow spine-like structure, and at the extremity it has a orifice of the silk gland. Now, such a type of mouth parts are found only in lepidopteran larvae, which spins a silken cocoon around themselves to undergo the pupation. So this is about the first subtype of the chewing mouth part, that is grasping mandibular mouth part. Then the second one is a grasping and sucking kind of the mouth parts. Now here in this type, the whatever modification is there, that modification is with the mandibles. Now here in case this type, the mandibles are long, curved fang that are hinged to anterior lateral angles of the head by dorsal and ventral articulation, and thus all these mandibles here, they works in a horizontal plane. So they are found in some neuropteran insect, Coleoptera, such as the Lampridae and Ditticid larvae. So this kind of the mouth part is a peculiarity of somewhat predatory insects. Okay, and in this type, each mandible is transversed by a tubular canal as a groove on the inner face of the appendage with a confluent edges opening distally near the tip and proximally near the basis of jaws. Now this is a characteristic feature actually. Here you can see all the mandibles are somewhat fang-like, and these are highly curved, and each and every mandible, they are always provided with a groove from the ventral side. The position of groove can be differ from different insect. For example, in case of Neuroptera, here you can see in the diagram, the groove is present from the ventral side exactly in the middle region. Okay, and this groove can be opposed by the lacinia so as to form a food canal or the siphon through which these insects, they suck the juice. Actually, these kind of the mouth parts, they are adapted for capturing the prey and puncturing their bodies and whatever fluid which is present in their body, which can be sucked, and hence it is referred as a grasping and sucking mouth part. Now in the another cases in the DTCD, these grooves are present at the marginal region. So here this marginal region is going to form a food canal. So in the TS you can see this groove is present at the extremity. And in case of the another coleopteran, that is Lampridae, neither this groove is present at the center nor it is present at the margin, but it is somewhat displaced from the margin, and this groove is forming a food siphon. So here if you see the TS, again the food siphon is located at the one extremity of that mandible. So this is the characteristic feature. Now the labrum in case of these insects is deflated against the base of labium, and the marginal ridge is held in a transverse groove of labial surface just behind the closure, thus forming a transverse preoral chamber, and this preoral chamber is referred as the cibarium. Now its floor, the floor of the cibarium, becomes a dorsal surface of the hypopharynx, and the dorsal wall of cibarium is provided with a strong dilators which are arising from the clivial region, and these are responsible for dilation of the cavity of the cibarium. The cibarial chamber becomes a preoral pump, and this preoral pump is responsible for creating a suction pressure which is applied to the fluid which is coming out of the body of their prey, and with the help of applying that pressure, they can able to suck the whatever juices or the liquid material is there in their prey, which can be sucked via this food siphon which is made by the mandibles. The mouth lies in a posterior wall of the cybarium and it leads to a strongly musculated anterior pharynx, and then after that food material is goes under the true alimentary canal. So this is the second modification of, or the second subtype of the chewing mouthpart known as a grasping and sucking. So whatever modification is there, that modification is with the mandible. Now the third type of mouthpart subtype is mandibulo-septorial mouthpart. In the chewing mouthparts of this subtype, they are found in some neuropteran insects. For example, the ant lion, and it is also found in some coleopteran insects. So is a peculiarity of again a predatory insects. So they have a long fang-like jaws. So here you can see, so these are the long fang-like jaws are there, or mandibles are there, and these mandibles are deeply grooved on their ventral surfaces, but the closing lobes are long blades of maxillae, and these blades of maxillae fits into the mandibular groove and thus forming a tubular canal between the two appendages through which the larva sucks the juices of its victim. Again, the mechanism is very simple. Again, that mandibles are operated in a horizontal plane which can be useful for capturing their prey. Then after, whatever groove which is present into the mandible, which can be closed with the help of these blades of the maxillae, which is responsible for forming a small cavity which is acting as a food siphon or the food canal through which they sucks the juice of their prey or the victim. Then maxillae, these are undergoes a reduction in appendicular part particularly. Only the blades they are get modified to fit into the grooves of the mandible. And the labium, this labium contains a middle plate which is differentiated as usually in a submentum and the mentum. So these are the features which can be found into the subtype of chewing mouthpart known as mandibulo-septorial kind of the mouthparts. So this is about the subtypes of chewing mouthpart. Then after, we are going to learn the another variety of the mouthparts which is found in an insect, which is referred as a rasping and sucking kind of mouthpart. Now this is actually the intermediate between the two classical mouthparts, as it somewhat resembles with that of the chewing and piercing and sucking type. So it is intermediate for the two classical mouthparts. So let's see the rasping and sucking mouthpart. Now in case of the Thysanoptera, the insects are commonly known as a thrips. The head bears a short, thick, conical beak. So here in this diagram you can see the short conical beak is there, and is often projecting in downward direction from the head of an insect. Here you can see easily. So this one is a somewhat triangular beak-like structure. Now externally, the beak is formed by the clypeolabral from the frontal side, the maxillae, particularly the stipious from the sides, and the labium from the behind. Means the clypeus labrum, maxillae and labium, these are responsible for forming a somewhat triangular small beak. And the labrum is broad triangular structure, while the maxillae are also long triangular structure bearing a palpi at the distal end. So here in this diagram you can see, so this is a maxillary palpi. Like that of again the labium is a wide having a pair of short palpi from the distal side. So labial palpi is also there, maxillary palpi is also there, but their size is greatly reduced. Now within this triangular beak, it encloses a three structures. The first one is single elongated slender mandibular stellate. So this is a mandibular stellate. The left side is only having a mandibular stellate, while the right mandible or right mandibular stellate is absent. Now what exactly the stellate? Now when these appendages they are loses their primary structure and they becomes a needle-like structure, at that time these appendages are referred as stellates. So here you can see the mandibles and maxillae they are loses their primary structure and they becomes a needle-like. Hence they are referred as a stellate. So this stellate is referred as the mandibular stellate. So keep remember, these insects only has a single stellate and which is located at a left side. And the right stellate is absent, hence their mouth parts becomes a asymmetrical one. So this is the first structure which lies in a beak. Then second one, a pair of piercing maxillary stellate. So these are the maxillary stellates. Now they are pair, left as well as right, and this stellate is actually the modification of Laciniia. And the third structure which arises in a beak, which is located at a center, the short median tubular hypopharynx. So these three structure means mandibular stellate, maxillary stellate, and the median lobular hypopharynx is there. This lies into this triangular beak. The stellates are adapted to move in and out of the beak, and all these parts forms a piercing apparatus which is useful for piercing the epidermis of their host, which is actually the leaves of the plant or the petals of the flower. The maxillary stellates are longer than that of the mandibular stellate. Laciniia fit together to form a food canal. The rasping and sucking type of mouth parts, these are intermediate between the chewing, biting and piercing sucking type. So they are asymmetrical due to the absence of right mandible, and the stellates are confined to the base in the individual pouches. They do not form a food canal, do not enter the wound deeply, and only whatever sap which is excluded on the surface is sucked up by the cone-shaped mouth rather than stylates. The food canal lies between the labrum and hypopharynx, with the head and saliva passes to the tip of stellates between the labium. So these are the features for that rasping and sucking kind of mouth part. So let's see feeding mechanism in these insects. The mechanism is very simple. The maxillary stellates are articulated with one another via a lever lying at a proximal base of the stipes, and it extends distally into the cavity of mouth cone. The thrips, first of all, grips the surface of leaf or the petals of the flower with their pretarsi. Then after they lift its head and makes a contact with the mouth cone with the surface of the leaf or the petals of flower. The mandible is get pulled out of the mouth cone by a clypeolabral muscle so that it punctures the surface of leaf 4 to 5 times per second, and again they are retracted back by the retracted muscles. The mandibles can penetrate only for a short distance because it is smaller than that of the maxillary stellate, while the maxillary stellates can penetrate deeply by alternating contraction of maxillary, protractor and retractor muscles. Means the principal piercing organ here is the maxillae. The laciniae are protracted and the cell sap is sucked by the action of sibarial pump into the food canal. So the sibarial pump is responsible for creating a suction pressure which is applied on whatever liquid or the sap which comes out of the punctured epidermis. Now in case of the thrips, the cibarium is modified into the simple sucking pump similar to that of the hemiptera. Its external aperture, that is mouth, is directly continuous with the food canal of the beak, and it is operated by a dorsal dilator muscles of the anterior frontal cephalic region. So this is it's the simple food and feeding mechanism which can be found into the thrips which are having the rasping and sucking type of mouth parts. So herewith we have completed the 3 subtypes of the chewing mouth parts and another mouth part, that is rasping and sucking mouth parts. Thank you very much.